I'm Lisa Bonise, and this is Mind Yourself. Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with author and adventurer in being, Elizabeth Ann Hill, as we discuss new ways of living in harmony with universal truth and all that is. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, we're back here with part 2 with Elizabeth Ann Hill, an interview with the universe. And if you listened to part 1, you heard us talking about how there were a little bit of sound issues when Elizabeth was recording with Glenna. And as we've all learned, sometimes the energies, when they're high, they can mess with all sound recordings. So if you hear strange reverberations in our voices here, just let's just roll with it and let it go. So Elizabeth, we were talking about highlights from the interview. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a few more?
Well, a big one, which I found really beautiful, is the guides had said that the most powerful force in the universe and in the human body is the inner child. That part of us that is not jaded, it's not, it's open and in awe and wonder and innocent and, just open and receptive. Children don't go into the future and they don't go into the past. They're playful. They use imagination. Once you start getting into your adult logical mind, it just kills it. And so the inner child is really, really powerful. And I love what they said. If all adults on this planet woke up in the morning excited to start playing, all maladies would disappear. Do you remember that one from the interview? Is that, that's a pretty strong statement. And, I've found that within myself. I've learned to be that way, very, as much inner child as I can and playful. And I do feel very healthy most of the time. So I feel like this is really valid, but it's not just about health. It's just, in order to be receptive to these new energies, we have to become more like a child. Now, I have a story about, this was before I even had met these guides, but when I was doing my radio show and I had just written Twin Souls and all the money was going away. And I did not know what to do. But at this point I was receiving guidance in different ways. And so the only guidance that kept coming in was become like a child, let go, become like a child, go play, do the things that remind you of your childhood. And are you nuts? I mean, I have to pay my bills, but nothing was working. I mean, when you read the book, when my book comes out, you see some of the ridiculous things I tried to do to get a job and the universe just wasn't having, there was just no job forthcoming. So, and I worked in corporate America and I had plenty of experience in all this, but it was just not happening. So I went, I call it the 3 B's. I went to the beach and I took ballet, which has always been my great love, mine and my sister's great love. And I went boogie boarding because I'm a Pisces and I grew up in San Diego. So when I was young, we used to go boogie boarding. So I did those things. Instead of looking for a job, I stopped looking for a job. I sat on the beach, running on the beach, swam in the ocean, boogie boarded, took ballet class, and then went to a silent retreat at Paramahansa Yogananda's ashram in San Diego, which is just stunning, right on the Pacific Ocean. Mm-hmm. And then right after that, all of that, everything shifted. My father had passed away and his estate was all problematic, and it wasn't supposed to settle for a good 8 months or something. It suddenly all settled. So some money came in. That's when I met Glenna. Right after that, the Interview with the Universe project came in and all of that. And then I got a new place to live, which was 10 minutes from that self-realization center in Encinitas, which is right on the ocean. I got a new place to live. I mean, everything just fell right in my lap. So that was an example. And it's the exact opposite of what we've been taught. You just, no, try harder, work harder, and it literally, this whole journey has taught me that it's not that way. Now, that doesn't mean you don't take action and do things, when you need to, but I was doing everything that I could possibly do. And this was the guidance. So, and it worked. So okay. That's the inner child.
And that was sort of your first inkling of what you were on the path to learn to do, which you are still doing today.
Yes, it was. It was because this was even before the interview with the universe, and but I had these little angel cards, and I was pulling angel cards, and they were kind of helping me to hone what am I being guided to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really use cards that much anymore, but it helped me, and I just kept getting this card about child, become like a child, and now I really, really, the guidance is just so clear. The more you rely on guidance, the clearer it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that inner child thing is not just a cliche that we don't talk about. It's the rational human adult mind. There is a place for it. I'm not bashing our intellect. We need it, but actually it needs to take a back seat to our heart, to the intuition, to the soul. That's what intuition is the soul speaking to you. And you can't communicate with the soul through the logical mind. It only comes through the heart. And to be childlike, not childish, but to be childlike,
right,
is a powerful energy, and it shifts everything. So
yeah, okay, all right. So then, what about what did you learn about the new physics, the new energy that we're all talking about these days?
This was the biggest. Well, I wouldn't say a revelation. I guess I kind of already had heard this, but it was. They kept repeating this. All possibilities exist simultaneously. We don't live in a finite world, that there's this finite world out there that we have to somehow corral it, make it, all possibilities exist simultaneously in energy form. And so the way that we create in this realm is by putting our focus and putting our attention on what we want to create. And since people have forgotten this over the last many eons of time, somehow this has kind of gotten lost. And so people have been, believing that there's this world, it's kind of like apart from us. But no, it's not that. This is different physics. There's Newtonian physics, and we're in quantum physics, where all possibilities exist. So there is no lack of anything. There's not enough. That's a myth. It's just that we've been programmed over and over and over, that we have to, it's almost like we've been enslaved in a way. We've been taught. And so there's only some people knew, the movie The Secret, only some people knew this. And so now, of course, it's all coming back into the mass collective consciousness, that we are just energy. We're all energy, and we have to focus on what we want, not on what we don't want. And so we have to take responsibilities, and responsibility, the guides said that it was very important for people. They wanted me to clear up the understanding that there are no victims, that we are sovereign beings. We come into this realm knowing that we're going to take on darkness and all these different things. And so we all, as a collective and as an individual, are responsible for everything that appears. That doesn't mean blame. It just means we are responsible. And so when you have people focusing for eons of time on negativity and lack and fear, this is what we have. But it's a really positive thing, because everybody on the individual level and now on the macro level are kind of walking through these limiting belief systems and saying, do we want these anymore? And of course, the answer is no, we don't want them. And so it's actually a really beautiful thing. But to understand this is, I think, the real crux of my journey. One of the main center points is that this is to a lot of people, it's not new. It's quantum physics has been around a long time, but we haven't really put the two together, that we don't live in a finite world. There's not enough to go around. That's just a complete myth. And so everything is energy. And so if you want to create something in your life, you really can do it if you put your attention there. Obviously, if you're really wanting something that's not so aligned with your soul's purpose, it doesn't mean everything, and besides that, your soul sees the bigger picture. Your higher self is kind of on the mountaintop, and the human mind is in the valley. So we may want something, and we may later think, oh, thank God that didn't come about. But pretty much, when we align our energies, we can focus and we can bring into what we need and what we want.
Right, right. And I know we don't want to talk about politics at all here, but I do want to mention that because you're talking about the idea of lack and not enough, uh, that is really coming to the forefront of human consciousness right now, of who has what and how a few people have everything and everyone else has nothing. So what you're talking about here really does sort of help illuminate what we're seeing play out, and how
Absolutely.
us shifting our own consciousness is the way to help clear up this mess.
Right. I mean, it's in actuality, it's not even a mess. The guide said this is a very powerful moment in history, and don't become afraid. Go the other direction, because this is such a beautiful thing that all the we live in a realm of polarities. That's what the third dimension is. And so in order for all of us to move out of all of that, we have to embrace all of it. That doesn't mean that we say, well, it's okay to do these things, but it, it is. We have to first see that this is our collective creation. We do have the power to change it, because I think people feel powerless. And so each individual person has the ability to go inward and reduce the fear and calm down and focus on love and peace. And that's the vibration then. And people have forgotten about, people say, well, I'm loving, but what about those people out there? There are no people out there. That's not how it works. It's like, if, remember in Twin Souls, where I talked about David R. Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, and he calibrated energy. And so the different levels of energy, and he was talking about how one being that's a Christed, loving, non-judgmental being can, like Jesus or Buddha or whoever, can override millions who are in lower energies. So all energies are not created equally. And so yes, we're seeing, it's just so interesting that my sister was a border patrol agent, and that she was saying what she was saying. I mean, that's not a coincidence that we now are seeing, what we're seeing, kids in cages, and we got Brexit where I am, and refugees, and and what is that all about? It's about fear. It's about, there's not enough, and I need to protect what I have. Individuals do this, and then on a grander level. But this is why, if each individual, the principle of quantum physics says critical mass, there only needs to be, I don't know what it is, 2 or 3% of the population, and then the dominoes fall. So we don't need to worry about anybody else.
Right.
Just ask yourself, do I have fear? Am I in lack? Do I focus my energies in peace? And do I calm? And do I meditate? And do I go out in nature? Am I childlike in an open-hearted way? Do I follow my heart? Do I follow my intuition?
Right.
That's
And
it.
then, of course, blaming others is not the way to go, because as we all know, we've all played these different roles.
Yeah, the guide said you've all been the victim, and you've all been the victimizer. We've lived multiple incarnations, and that's the whole reason we come here. And so judgment is inappropriate. That was I asked several times, what is the biggest mistake human beings make? They said judgment. Because it's not that you shouldn't judge, it's that you cannot, because you're in our human mind, you don't see the full picture as to why something is happening. So you have to step back from judgment, and there's assessments, like what do I want to what do we want to create here, and what do we not want. But yes, I mean, people are terrified. They're terrified, and they're afraid that those people out there are going to come into our country and take what we have, and then we're not going to have it. And that's the whole crux of the problem right there. And so the awakening has to happen at the grassroots level. It's not going to come from the government. I mean, the government is just a reflection of the people. The government is a reflection of people. And so we need to start changing the way we understand the world and the way we live. And yeah, so it's a really powerful moment, a choice moment. How do we want to focus our energies? So
Right,
the
right.
chaos.
And how do we lead ourselves out of this chaos?
Yes, I mean, it's I mean, what precedes transformation? Chaos. So it's actually as it's meant to be, but that doesn't mean that we just sit back. And the guides, one of the things they had said to me, I don't know if it was in the actual recording or not, maybe it was, where they said human beings are very lazy. They would not make the changes that they need to make if this was not so intense. So it's a good thing that it is what it is. And it's just, to me, it's a very beautiful moment. If we embrace it and we learn these new, I mean, a lot of people know them, but do they actually walk them? And that was like, I mean, I said I was gonna walk this talk. I remember standing in my apartment way before all of this happening, and I remember saying, nobody lives this. I want to see if it's I said it from the depth of my soul. Well, ask and you shall receive. It then happened. Where I was like, because I really wanted to learn this. Yeah. So it's really powerful. And the guide said the biggest problem on the planet is fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's not any other thing, because, as he said, everything's about energy. And so they said there's so much fear that it's like a brick that's just hanging there, and it's causing chaos in the weather patterns and the earth herself. And we have storms and hurricanes. And so what are people doing? They're going onto Facebook or wherever, social media, and lamenting how terrible everything is. And they think that they're doing something good. Well, I have to make everyone aware. And you're not. You're adding more and more. It's like a tornado, just creating more and more fear.
Right, stirring it all up.
Right. And you cannot solve a problem at the level it was created. So if you really want to solve the issues of the earth, then you have to be that one, that Christed one, the one that raises their consciousness and is above all this low energy bickering. And then all kinds of ideas and grassroots solutions will come in. What's going on now cannot sustain in higher conscious. It wouldn't sustain itself. It would collapse. It would melt away. So trust me, going on Facebook and posting all these posts and going on Instagram or whatever, doing these things does not help. It's the other direction. We have to go the other direction. We need to focus on positive things. And there's so much going on. Look at all the solutions that are coming forward. And
right,
really,
right.
yeah. So
Yeah, there's all these teenagers who are now like inventing new machines and coming up with cures to illnesses, and they just have this more expanded, less limited way of looking at things.
Yeah, well, the kids, the guides had said that, we talked about the indigo children and the crystals and the rainbows, is like, those are just labels, but the kids are coming in a higher energy, higher vibration. And so you can see it happening. And it's amazing to watch. There's so many solutions. I mean, things like we see in urban, like I think it's in Los Angeles, or many urban, like poor neighborhoods, people are now planting gardens and having, homeless people come in and work in the gardens, or taking shipping containers and building them into homeless communities. And they're beautiful. They're with glass and, big windows, and then they're bringing in people. And so government is not the solution. The guides, we talked about government, and they said that government is a leadership. That's its role, to be a leadership, but it needs to follow the people, not the other way around. And so the people, all these, innovative things, sometimes people have to fight the government in order to get them. This guy in LA, he has to fight tooth and nail to get these gardens. So, the government, we don't need a government solution. What we need the government to do is get out of the way and just do what it's meant to do. Take the resources and put them in positive, life-affirming projects. And I think that is going to happen. I think that's why it's the way it is now. But
right, and get more into the way that indigenous cultures would handle things.
Yes, and the guide said, the only thing that heals is love. The only thing that heals, if somebody's acting out, it's because they're in pain and they're in fear. And if you shame them and blame them, and you're on an energy level and on every other level, you're just adding to that person being more and more dysfunctional. And so in indigenous cultures, if someone was acting up, they would put them in the middle of the community, and they would say wonderful things and tell the person that they love them. And I know some people would scoff at that and say, well, but again, we live in an energy-based universe, so don't scoff, because, we thought we were civilized when we came in and, took away these indigenous cultures and called them uncivilized. Well, they didn't have jails, and they didn't have drug abuse, and they didn't need lawyers, and they didn't have 401ks, and they didn't have illness like we do now. They lived in very community-oriented, loving way. And I've been guided that we're going to start going back towards that way. It's going to be more expanded, like a new version. But yeah, we have to become more loving and more community-oriented. And yeah, and there are people who are coming forward now who are starting to represent people in politics, people in other walks of life that are coming forward. Let's allow it. Let's not keep killing it with our negative talking and negative, viewpoints.
Right. And that's where we'll stop for today. Once again, you can download a copy of Twin Souls for free, and also the MP3 files of the interview by visiting Elizabeth on her Facebook page. The link is below. You can also listen to the interview recordings on YouTube here on the Mind Yourself channel. Again, the links are below. And if you're moved to support her journey or would like to offer an energy exchange for the download, you can PayPal Elizabeth at her email address, twinsouls444@gmail.com, or at the link below. And be sure to listen in to the rest of my interviews with Elizabeth Ann Hill to hear the rest of the story. Thanks for watching. I'm Lisa Bonnice. See you next time.